Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Allie. It is Friday after work and I'm ready to dive into some weird ass books. Today I'm going to be reading Death Valley by Melissa Broder, and tomorrow I'm going to be reading Organ Meats by Kaiming Chang. I love weird books, and I especially love weird books if there's sadness and grief in it, and so I'm very excited. I'm also hoping to see the new Priscilla movie this weekend. I'm so excited. I worship Sofia Coppola. I feel like she gets that weird girl vibe without actually having fantastical things in her movies, but I feel like she's definitely read the Pisces, you know? I also have a birthday party to go to tomorrow. It's so funny saying that as an adult, like you have to go to a birthday party. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it sounds weird. Let's talk about Melissa Broder. This is the author of Milk Fed and The Pisces, an iconic book. I've never read anything quite like it. However, despite loving these books, I didn't give them 5 stars. So I'm expecting to enjoy myself. I'm expecting for something weird, something really highly personal, maybe even uncomfortable. I did read the first chapter of this in this video and it was kind of sad. It was that runoff type of writing that Melissa Broder is known for, at least in my head. But it was kind of sad because this character, let me tell you what the book's about. I actually don't know the main character's name, but her father is in the ICU. It says in the synopsis that her husband is also going to be sick, and she sort of runs away to the desert. It says it's going to be a survival story, which I wasn't that hot about, but listen to this. It suggested that she goes on a hike, and so she does, and while she's out in the desert, she sees this giant cactus. She sees a door in it. She walks inside of the cactus into a fantastical world. I guess it doesn't say there's a fantastical world in there. It says she enters it. What awaits her within this mystical succulent, that sounds fantastical to me, sets her on a journey at once desolate and rich, hilarious and poignant. I'm wondering if this is the kind of situation where she's hallucinating from heat exhaustion or having a heat stroke, or if it's actually happening. I'm hoping for one of those ambiguous types, or flat out, this is actually happening. So without further ado, I'm gonna start reading, and I'll let you know what I think either when something crazy happens or at the 25% mark. I'm gonna start reading. Bye. For some reason, I cannot not drink coffee out of a straw anymore. It's a sickness. Also, LOL, my copy just has the first 20 pages not attached to the spine, so I'm gonna read them this way. Feels like I'm at church with my little choir book. So far, chapter 2 sounds like an ad for the Best Western hotels. Good for them. I hope they know about this book. She's talking about the check-in lady at this Best Western, and she's saying like how much detail she's giving her about the breakfast. She says, I feel warm inside, like when I get a massage or go to the gynecologist, and I know the person's just doing their job, but I can't help but feel turned on by the attention. Oh, okay. I should probably put this back in the book. Oh. All right, I just finished chapter 8. I'm about a quarter of the way through, and she just found the cactus and she went inside of it. I'm glad that that's happening right now because I started to get a little bored. I don't know if stream of consciousness is the right word, but this main character is just talking about so much. She has a lot of thoughts about her husband who has some sort of mystery illness, but he's not able to work. He can't move around too often. She's talking about her father. She's talking about plants. She likes to list things like plants and medicines. She talks about these Reddit posts and books that she's listening to about grief. She says random ass things that are kind of funny, like she's wondering what the hotel lobby dude's dick looks like. But interestingly enough, she hasn't been on this trail for, I don't even know, probably not that long at all. So I feel like if there is something fantastical in this cactus, there's no way that she could be hallucinating yet. Anyway, I'm dying to continue reading because I want to know what's in this goddamn cactus. But I'm not even going to be able to tell you about anything else that happens in this book except for my opinions on it, because that's literally the entire reason I bought this book, and I don't want to spoil anyone's fun. However, I think I am going to do a spoil section at the end of this section of the video, because if you read it and you want to know my thoughts, obviously, but more so I feel like for the people who aren't going to pick this book up, maybe you're wondering what's in this cactus, and I'm going to let you know in a little bit. Okay. I don't know how I feel about what was revealed. I hope there's more information. All right, I am halfway through and I actually got a notification from my library that my audiobook hold from Libby came through with this book. It's weird because at first I was like, oh, I don't know if I like this. It's narrated by the author Melissa Broder, but her voice is so, I don't know how to describe it. It's very bright and da 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 da. If that makes any sense, God bless you. And I wasn't really connecting with it, but now I'm kind of bored. So I've been listening to the audiobook. So it's not going as well as I thought it would be. I'm halfway through now. It's leaning more on the desert survival story, which is what the blurb said, so I should have believed it, and less on the crazy cactus. That's all I can really tell you. I can say that it is a very quick read, so there's that if you're interested. What a rave review I'm giving. All right, I just finished Death Valley. I don't know what to think. It was very easy to read. It wasn't frustrating at all, which is something I complain about when I don't like a book. So I did like it, but I don't know. It's kind of a strange feeling. And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, every time I finish a Melissa Broder book, I'm like, did I enjoy that? The answer so far has always been yes, but this feels kind of mid to me. And I'm scared it's because this is her most mature character, and somehow I found that a little bit more boring, despite the fact that this was quite literally a desert survival story, which you think would be very high stakes and drama filled, but it was just the fact that she had so many conversations with things that weren't real. She wrote fictional letters to rabbits back and forth, like their responses and her rebuttals, saying sorry that she ate their cactus. She's talking to flowers, she's talking to rocks. It felt very low stakes in that way, that she was being very silly while she could have been dying. And she does say something in the beginning about how she finds humor in death and in dying. So that makes a kind of sense actually now that I'm thinking about it, but it didn't, I don't know. I think the allure of the Pisces for me isn't the sexy merman or the awkward sexual nature of this book. It's the fact that our main character is so unlikable and so flailing in herself that it's achingly relatable, but like not relatable at all. And it's also almost disturbing how unwell this character is, but also alluring. Did I already say that word? I feel like this was a book about obsession, and this one really is just about grappling with grief. She's in this desert, but she's thinking about her father and his struggles and his sickness, but also her husband. And weirdly enough, it felt kind of like Sloane Crosley's writing in Cult Classic. And this kind of had a mid feeling to me as well, even though there were sort of cultish things going on, which sounds more interesting than the actual book was, in my opinion. I know several people that really love this. So if you did like Cult Classic, there's a chance you'll really, really like Death Valley. Not really like it. There's a chance you'll like the writing style. There we go. For me though, I mean, I feel like it had a lot of heart, and I did feel connected to the main character. Again, she was the most likable of any of Melissa Broder's characters. Maybe most likable is the wrong word. She was the most mature, and I think she was older than her other characters. So that would actually make sense. What am I even saying? I'm feeling very circular, and that's an interesting thing because Melissa Broder, or at least in this book, the character talks in circles and is very repetitive in the words that she uses. And I have to say, at one point it was a little annoying, which is weird because I usually like stuff like that. Maybe I'm just in a bad mood. I can't tell. If you like stories about grief, I think this was pretty interesting. And like I said, I did like believe the relationship that this character had with her father and her husband. It was very wholesome and like sad and happy at the same time, which is nice. I think I was going into this book though, thinking it was gonna be absolutely fucking crazy like Bunny. It's not what I got, but I don't even know if I should have gone in thinking that I was gonna get that. It was weird though, but it wasn't like, what the fuck? All right, that's all I have to say, but I am gonna go into spoilers. So if you do not want to know what is in this book, any more detail on the cactus situation or, you know, the ending, then skip this section. I have chapters down below so you can skip right to the next book. So You've been warned. Hi, welcome to the spoiler section of Death Valley. You have been warned. I'm about to spoil the fuck out of this book. Okay, so our girl is at the hotel. She goes for a little hike. It doesn't seem like she's heat exhausted. She didn't seem like she's been walking for that much. She sees the giant cactus. She sees like the little seam in it, and she really gorges her fingers in there and just kind of opens it up. It's kind of obscene, really, if it weren't a cactus. But anyway, she pokes her head in there first, and then her shoulders, and then the whole body, which is, I feel like that must be an exaggeration or a fantastical part, because are cacti really that big? I have no idea. Anyway, she goes in and she says the bottom of it, it's very dark inside, but the bottom is sand and rock, but like around her is just a cactus, like a hollow cactus. So she's sitting there and she starts hearing this scratching noise. She looks over and it's a little boy making a sandcastle. She recognizes the little boy from a picture she has of her father, so it's her child father, and she just hangs out with him for a little bit. Then she goes back to her hotel, and I thought at first when she went out of the cactus things would be different, but it's just her normal life. Maybe she's like still in the cactus and we don't have any idea. Who knows? The next morning she tells the hotel people that she saw this giant cactus, and they're like, absolutely not, there's no saguaros over here, you definitely didn't see that kind of cactus. And she's like, okay. She ends up going on the hike again just to see if it's still there, and it is, and she goes inside, but inside is not her child father, it's her teenage father. She and him start smoking a cigarette, and then she looks over because some kid is like coughing, and it's the child version of her husband. So she's just hanging out with these sick men in their child forms. Then she ends up going back to the hotel. Also, I forgot, her father did wake up from the coma, I think before even her first trip to this cactus. The next morning she decides to check out of the hotel early, and the guy is like, I went back there because you said there was a cactus and I didn't see a single cactus. And she's mad at first, but then she's like, oh my god, am I going crazy? Also, she's mentioned a couple times at this point, I'm sorry if I'm like talking way too fast, by the way. Hopefully you're keeping up. She's mentioned a couple at this point, like she can't have relapsed. She hasn't drinking or done any psychedelics. So now we're questioning her reliability, and we're questioning what's going on with her sobriety story. I don't know, maybe she's secretly imbibing. Is that the right word? Where did that one come from? Anyway, so she checks out of the hotel and she ends up going back to see this cactus because she's wanting to prove herself right, but the cactus isn't there. Instead, what's there are the things that she's brought to the cactus. She's brought a bunch of different rocks, and they start talking to her. And she did this before, but I thought she was just personifying these rocks, but maybe she actually is not doing well. I don't know. So she continues to walk. She seems to be going very far. She's very lost. She's trying to be a cowboy and just be very chill about it and try to psych herself not into freaking out, but she just fell and hurt her ankle. And I think she's running out of water, and so it is turning into a survival story of sorts. Those are all the spoilers at the 50% mark, at least the ones that I find juicy. I'm interested to hear more about her struggles with addiction. Now that I'm explaining this story, I guess I am getting a little more invested. All right, I just finished, and from the 50% mark to like the 80-something% mark, nothing happened except our main character was just trying to survive. Her ankle was pretty fucked up. We eventually find out that it's actually broken, so she's like crawling and dragging herself across the desert floor, and I think she's out there for 2 full days. She ends up snacking on a cactus. She like talks to bunnies and she makes up responses back to her, and it's actually kind of funny, but also I think it goes on a little bit too long. Just my opinion right now. And then something pretty significant happens. She opens her eyes at one point and she sees this huge yellow bird, and she decides that this is her father, and it means that her father is dead. And she gets on the bird and it flies her over the expanse of the desert for a while, and it lands eventually, and then it takes off and she's all by herself. She looks around and she sees that she is on that original trail close to the parking lot where her car is, but also close to that cactus. And this dumb bitch is like, I'm gonna go see if the cactus is there one last time, and then I'll go home and drink water and eat food and, you know, deal with my peeling skin. She drags herself She sees that the cactus is there. She goes inside of the cactus and she licks it, trying to find like water, and it's very not good. It tastes like rubbing alcohol or nail polish remover or something. And she talks a lot about like psychedelics throughout this whole book, so I'm wondering if she is somehow getting high off something. I don't know if that was like a subtext I was reading or if I made that whole thing up. But anyway, she eventually leans back onto the cactus and like gets her skin on it and suddenly she realizes she's sucking on a nipple. I'm sorry. And Dr. Pepper is getting into her mouth, and she opens her eyes, and there is her father as he was when she was younger, like him at peak fatherdom. He is feeding her Dr. Pepper through a bottle, and she can't move because she's swaddled, and so she's like a baby now. Eventually this ends, and then she looks around and she sees her husband as he was when he was 20, and he's really hot and naked and has an erection. But she can't call to him and he can't call to her. He's in like an ocean or a water. She's obviously tripping her balls off with heat exhaustion and hallucinations. And then she sees her dead father. He's in his like funeral attire, and she decides that now, while she's dying, she needs to bury his body. And so she digs and digs and digs, and then she starts hearing voices, and she thinks it's the people that work in the hotel. And she decides that though she believes her father is dead, her husband is ill, and she wants to take care of him. She wants to survive so that she can be with him. And so she gets out of the cactus and she starts crawling to the hotel people. They start walking away because they don't think she's out here, and she can't talk because her throat is so like fucked up. And she throws her last little rock that she personified, and it hits one of them in the head, and she is rescued. She wakes up at the hospital. She's being treated. She has like a broken ankle, maybe a wrist, obviously very dehydrated. And it turns out her dad's actually alive. So random. She does mention that she used to be addicted to opioids, so I'm again wondering if they put that in there to make us think that maybe she was doing drugs. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of a book just having a character who is a recovered drug addict, and that's just a part of her personality, and it doesn't actually come into the plot. I think that's actually really cool, but I'm wondering if there is actually a piece of that in play here, because then she ends up getting flowers delivered to her hospital room, and she just starts talking to them. And I'm thinking it's just her. I haven't mentioned this entire time, but she's a writer, and she went to the desert to help inspire her to write this story. And so I'm thinking like, okay, she just got a very active imagination. But apparently her husband comes into her hospital room, and he finds her actually talking to the flowers, and he's like, who are you talking to? She's like, oh, just myself. I mean, I do that all the time, so it's not that weird, but I feel bad even suggesting that she is not mentally herself or that she might be using. I feel like very rude to even suggest that. So it's a weird kind of situation where I love an ambiguous ending. Like, I don't know why she saw those cactus things before she was heat fevered and water deprived. Like, was it just a symptom of her grief or just her overactive imagination? Is there a tumor in her brain? Has she been using? I don't know. Usually that ambiguous sort of ending, like I eat it up, but the fact that I'm questioning her sobriety is making me feel bad. But it does end kind of happily. Like her father's alive. She feels better with him. He's smiling, which is great. And her husband and her are just laying in the hospital bed. And the last line of the book is nobody dies, which is a lie because we're all gonna die. And she actually has that conversation with the flowers. So I don't really know what to think. My last thought I'm gonna give you is that the more I talk about this book, like even at the halfway point when I told you all the spoilers so far, I realized that I was closer and closer to the character. And then when I just now did the same thing at the end of the book, I feel closer to the story, and I have more to say about it and more to think about it and more parallels to bring together. So this might be another Melissa Broder book that really grows on me. I guess time will be the test of that. Hi, it's the next day, and I have a couple hours before I have to go to my friend's house for their party. And so I wanna get started on organ meats. I'm really hoping for a 5-star here, which is kind of unfair because I've only ever read one of the short stories from this author's previous collection, Gods of One. Another stunning cover, like wow, look at this shit, this is amazing. I did love that short story though, and so I'm excited to have a full novel of this weird, heartwarming, funny tale. I don't know. This is about a pair of best friends. Their names are Anita and Rainey. That's my niece's name. They find refuge by an old sycamore tree with its neighboring lot of stray dogs who have a mysterious ability to communicate with humans. And it turns out that these girls are ancestors of women that are both women-headed dogs and dog-headed women, which is just wow. To preserve their kinship forever, Anita convinces Rainey to become a dog with her, tying a collar of red string around each of their necks. But when the two girls are separated, Anita sinks into a dream world, interesting, that only Rainey knows how to rescue her from. As Anita's physical form begins to rot, ew, it's up to Rainey to rebuild Anita's body. Oh wow, I don't think I heard that in the other synopsis. And keep her friend from being lost forever. Filled with ghosts and bodily entrails and visceral lore. Interesting. This is a story about the horror and beauty of intimacy, written by Kaiming Chang's signature poetic voice. Okay. There's actually a table of contents, and these titles of these chapters are very interesting. For example, chapter 1 is called Disparate Girls Discover That Doghood is Not the Opposite of Godhood, and Anita Hesia recounts the ox-boned origin of her family residence. It's quite a wordy title. The first center is, in the center of summer, soft with rot, Rainey and I decide to be dogs. All right, I'm gonna get started. I'll let you know what I think as I go on. Also, because I went into such spoilers for Death Valley, this is gonna be a long video, but there'll be chapters below, and I feel like I now have to do spoilers for this book, so stay tuned for that if you're interested. What is with these two authors and bodily functions? I don't know. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of, I don't know. Ew. Okay, I just finished chapter 1. It's been a while. I've been distracted from Instagram, I'm sorry. But feces were mentioned so many times in this chapter, it's honestly funny. And I'm so glad that a child is the narrator of this story because there's no other way that this could be told. I don't even know if this is actually going to become fantastical. It's just like the imagination and almost a narcissism of a child. And it's funny trying to decipher what adults have told them in maybe metaphors that they've taken as literal. I took a peek into the next chapter and it's actually told in like a play sort of format, like a script. I read the first part and it said that one of their mothers is talking about how women were dogs. Wives were dogs. You beat the dog, it still follows you around. And I think it's supposed to be a metaphor about how women were treated like pets or objects and still loved their owners. But I think the girls actually are thinking that this is real. And so there's so much going on in this first chapter that makes absolutely no sense. The entire last paragraph is about how Anita is telling Rainey that they are the descendant of feces. They descend from dog feces. One day, a woman born on the mountain carried her harvest basket home and discovered that it is pebbled with dog shit. I just... But it is told in a beautiful way besides all the poop. It's told in a very symbolic and imagery sort of way. I'm not even making sense with my words. I need Kaiming Chang to write my thoughts for me. But like they're talking about how dry wherever it is they live is, and one of the characters' name is Rainey. She says, Rainey is so unfamiliar with rain, she forgets its name. We sing her name and the sky snags in our throats and we are so dry, we peel away our skins like lizards and walk the streets on our bellies. I don't even know what that even means. So I can kind of understand why someone wouldn't like this if they don't like weird stuff and they can't suspend their sense of reality, because nothing in this book is going to make sense. I'm just beginning to understand that. And I think that's the point. It's supposed to be about imagination and about loyalty. We've already gotten a look inside of the two characters. We have Anita, who is very headstrong. She's making the rules. She's the alpha dog in this two-man pack, two-women pack, two-girl pack. And then we have Rainey, who is, I feel like she really does love Anita as a friend, but she is hesitant to commit her life to Anita in this dog pack and to just follow whatever rules. Anita says, do you want to be a dog with me? And Rainey says, if it means I follow you forever, I have to think about it for at least a week. And Anita is just, I think she's in love with Rainey. There's been a couple of sexual things that they've seen either with dogs, just, you know, in the wild, or with some of their family, and they've tried to reenact it. They don't know what it means because they're children, they don't understand it. But I think Anita is definitely in love with Rainey. And it's gonna be interesting because it turns out that Anita is the friend that's going to be sinking into the dream world and Rainey has to save her. So she's gonna have to step up and decide whether or not Anita is her bonded soulmate that, you know, they planned for. I feel like this is the kind of sad, happy feeling of nostalgia where you think about how innocent you used to be and all the crazy shit that you used to play and all of the thoughts you had. Because I remember being in elementary school and talking with my friends or my brother, and we would just come up with ideas and we would be like, yeah, that's exactly it. We would be so sure of what we're saying just as we're making it up. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of sad because we're never going to be like that again. I would hope. I mean, you have to grow out of this stage of life, but it's also kind of sad because what a time that was when you just pooped in a fence. Actually, I never did that before, but you know what? No judgment. I do have to tell you this one story about poop. So if you're not interested, just skip a little bit. I think I was 3 years old and my brother was 4. We grew up with our grandparents. I think it was just when we first moved into their house, in the room that they were having me stay in, all of their stuff was in it, and so we could kind of climb into a little hidey hole. It's very hard to explain, but anyway, we decided that we had to live in this hidey hole and stay there, and we weren't allowed to leave even to go to the bathroom. Oh dear God. And so within 5 minutes of making this place our home, we're like, okay, we have to go to the bathroom right now in here. Otherwise, this isn't our home. And so there's like a box in there. I think it was a Lego box, and we poop in it. Oh, this is kind of embarrassing, but I was 3 years old, okay? And we promptly left. We were just like, yeah, why would we stay in here? There's poop in here. And I think we went through the whole day and we must have just forgotten or didn't care. And later, our grandmother found it and she was fucking pissed. I think that's the first time I ever realized that she hated me, but that's a long story. The things that children do, like, they're honestly menaces, but it's so funny. It's kind of gross too. Please don't judge me, I was 3.
Clear nights when all the haze gets washed away, smooth flights to Cabinet's Marvel escape. From the back to the front, from the ground going up, and I feel something like the sky. Hold the light, let it shine till my heart starts to say something. Stay, blackberry days, blooms on the horizon. Way under the rays, watch the world brighten. All these things are given to.
Hi, we got back from the movies a little bit ago. The movie was great. I love Sofia Coppola. I feel like she does atmosphere over plot, and I'm a big fan. Just the costuming and the sets and the makeup, it's all just a vibe, you know? But it was a really sad story, honestly, and it sort of matches the vibe of Organ Meats. Well, not the weird part, but definitely where they're talking about gender and how men just crave owning things and tying red strings to them and treating women like they're dogs, because Elvis definitely did that. Anyway, I'm sat here and I'm on page 80, and guys, I'm lost. This might be not too weird, like I'm enjoying the weirdness. It's just that I feel so lost as to what is happening here. I don't mind that, but I am kind of feeling a little out of the loop, so much so that it's almost becoming boring because I'm not being let on to like anything. The first quarter of it, there was a lot going on. There were a bunch of different narrators. We got both Anita, who was in the beginning, who's the very headstrong sort of alpha. We also got Rainey, who seems to be very much more set in reality. There's actually a chapter where it says Rainey suspends her disbelief, which yes. But it's also like, I can't tell if this is a good friendship or not that the girls have, because Anita seems almost toxic. Well, she seems pretty toxic because she's almost threatening Rainey to be tied to her. And at one point, Rainey says that she puts up with this red string, even though she keeps like trying to like break it, and she's hoping that it just falls off. She's not wanting to tie herself like this, but she says she does it because she knows the other ways that Anita could mark her involve permanent injury, severe bleeding, and scarring. Yikes. There was a chapter that was from the bitches. The bitches of the neighborhood, and they were the bitches underneath the sycamore tree. It said both literal and figurative, and so they're like the dogs, but also all the ghosts of the women of the neighborhood, perhaps. And it was almost like this omniscient Greek chorus because they knew everyone's business. They knew all about how Anita was brought to her mother. They knew all about Anita's mother's stories. They told us more about the lore of the red string, which reminded me of the Korean folktale that inspired this book, because in that book it also talked about red string tying soulmates together, but it was obviously romanticized in this book. In this book, they tell us the story about how this young man was told that his soulmate was over there. And so he was like, ew, I don't want a wife. I don't want anyone to tie me down. And so he threw a rock at her and she fled. But then when he grew up more and became an older man, he suddenly like wanted a partner and wanted a wife. And he sees this woman and she's got some sort of jewelry on her head. He's like, what is that? She lifts it up and it's a scar. She said, a boy once threw this out my head. And he's like, oh my God, it's fate. You're my soulmate. And it's interesting how the two girls react to this story, because Anita is like amazed. It's almost troubling how well Anita loves these stories of being bound. Anita thinks the story is romantic, but I don't think Rainey sees it that way. She just sees a girl being hit in the face by a rock from a boy. And at the end of that chapter, Anita literally threatens Rainey. She said, watch out. Like the boy in the story, I will strike you with a stone and scar you. You can't flee me. Before you leave, I will scar you right here. That's the only way I can make sure we'll meet again. Yikes. And it's weird because I can't tell. Like, Rainey is fighting against this bond, but she also is comforted by it, which is kind of like a toxic relationship, but it's just kind of sad. I don't know. There is a lot of allusion, even in this part of the story, to maybe Anita wanting to be a boy, because these bitches under the sycamore, they're talking about how men and gods crave tying red strings to women and to dogs and to things and owning them. And Anita craves this like nothing else. There's also some scenes where she pretends that she has a penis in a couple ways. She like has a banana down there and her mom catches her and it doesn't end well. And she also like pretends her shadow has a penis. And so I'm wondering how they're gonna handle this. I hope it goes well. We'll see. But I don't know, this friendship, they've already alluded several times in just the first few chapters that these girls are never gonna speak to each other again very soon. So I don't see this ending well. As of right now, this chapter that we're on, I'm just so completely lost. And like I said, it's to the point where I truly don't understand what's going on. I'm almost uninterested, which is very sad. And I really can't tell what's real and what's not, which is sort of fun, but also I feel like I haven't been invited into the story. I feel like I'm an outsider reading this and being like, sure. It is very, very poetic, I will say that. Almost so much that I'm like, was this all necessary? I don't know. I'm just gonna get on this ride and keep writing it, and I'll see you on the other side. A little over halfway through, and Anita has finally sunk into the dream world that they talk about in the back of the book. The way it has happened, I guess I can't tell you because it's a spoiler, but it's weird. The spoiler section for this book is gonna be so short because there's just so much shit happening, but also I don't think anything's actually happening. So that'll be interesting. All right, I just finished Organ Meats. It got me a little bit around the 75% mark. Like I was really feeling things. Just this sort of nostalgia that this entails, because some time does go by. And so just thinking about childhood friendships and like old, I don't know. And I actually started tearing up a little bit, but the ending, what the fuck? They lost me again. I have no idea. I don't know what happened in this book, and I am okay with that. I really am. I think earlier I was like, this is very poetic, and is it that necessary? And I think yes, I think it is. I think it's beautifully told, and just experiencing it as this weird group of stories, and that's basically what this is about. It's just like the oral tradition of women and daughters in these families, to just sort of take them and not have to insert yourself in them, just like take them as they're told to us. Obviously, I don't feel like I got so much out of this except that nostalgia because of that, because these stories are so untethered, I guess you could say, and so out there and so personal to these characters. It didn't really make that much sense to me, but it was quite an experience to read about. So I don't really know where I land here. I really, really, really want to read some reviews on this of smarter people, because this is definitely a book where I'm like, I feel stupid as fuck. But I do feel like this is the kind of book I would reread to try to get more out of it. And it's obviously so beautiful. It's also a little disturbing. And they talk about feces a fucking lot. Like, I think more than necessary, but also it's kind of funny in that way. And I'm reminded by something I actually underlined in Death Valley. This main character is an author, and apparently one time her editor said, pee is not a plot point. And the main character said, I disagree. There is never enough pee in novels. We pee as much as we eat and drink, and characters are always eating and drinking, but never peeing. And this author, I think in, what was it, The Pisces, there was a very memorable scene with feces. And I just don't know what these girlies are thinking, but I guess that's what they're thinking, that we all poop. So yeah, I don't know what happened in here at all. I can say that I was entertained, not in a way where like I'm dying to know what happens, because like, fuck if I know. But it was just being told so beautifully that it was sort of like a song you were listening to. Let me go into some spoilers for this book. There are only a couple here because what the fuck actually happened. But this is your warning if you don't want to know anything about this and you want to experience it for yourself. I can tell you it's quite an experience. Okay, spoiler section. Can't really tell you what happened in here, but we do know based on the back of the book that Anita ends up going into the dream world that only Rainey knows how to rescue her from. And the way that she gets there is described to us, and I will tell you the chapter title because wow. Anita gives cunnilingus to a tree, not unwilling. And after she eats this tree out, it takes her, and then she does not wake up for 10 years. But apparently this woman is also her mother, so maybe it wasn't cunnilingus. Maybe she like crawled back into her vagina. I don't know what happened in here. Anyway, so we get a 10-year time gap. Before Anita went into this slumber, Rainey actually left. Her family moved, and she had no idea during these 10 years that Anita was not conscious. And so Rainey eventually visits her because she just can't forget about her and she misses her. She finds out that she's unconscious, and then Anita's mother, her sister, and Rainey decide to make her another body. They collect all sorts of things, including a severed dog's innards. I don't even know. Sticks, this sort of Buddha statue, a melon, a rock, like all this random shit. All the while, Anita's body is rotting. Like, this is why I'm questioning whether or not Anita's even alive, because there are like mushrooms growing out of her and like insect eggs growing in her eyes, and I'm just wondering if this family has just kept this body in here for 10 years. It's a little disturbing. The ending, I don't understand. Apparently Anita comes back and takes the body, and I don't know if she lives or dies. Like, I don't know. I think she's alive. Could not fucking tell you. It is interesting to see where their relationship changes, because as Rainey gets older, I think she sees the value in how devoted Anita was to her. But at the same time, it was like Anita was pretty toxic in the way that she would threaten Rainey with bodily harm. And so I'm kind of sitting here for both of these books as 3.5s, but books that are making me think. I feel like this one is very memorable because it is so unique. And this one, although I feel like after a couple days now, it has sort of left me and I'm feeling more comfortable with the 3.5 star rating, I don't think I'll ever look at a cactus the same way. So I guess that's good. It's just been a weird weekend. I don't feel very well. I ate way too much popcorn at the movie theater and I feel so sick right now. And also there are some gross things happening at the end of this. So I feel a little unsettled both mentally and bodily. I am definitely though craving a stronger story. One more suited to my pea-sized brain, apparently. After this weekend of sort of ambiguity. Ambiguity. I can't even say that word right. That's how stupid I am. Anyway, thank you for coming along with me. Let me know if you've read these books. I know they just came out. But please, if you're watching this having just read these, you've got to let me know what you think, especially about organ meats. Like, what the fuck happened? I'll see you in the next vlog. Something a little less confusing, perhaps. And I hope you have a good day. Goodbye.